the one I want to jump to, because there's so many interesting comments that have come in throughout the week, is whether Christians should support student loan forgiveness. Student loan costs are off the charts completely. We talked about the cost of college over time. It's been like 180% increase.
Yeah.
I did some math, sort of. Remember that when I did math?
Simple math, hopefully.
Someone stole my math.
Hopefully it wasn't too complicated.
But nonetheless, I did this math, and it basically was income has hardly gone up at all, like 0.3%. Meanwhile, costs of tuition and such have gone up 180%.
Ooh.
You have people in Lauren and Daria's generation totally crippled by college debt,
Yeah.
particularly if they want to do a specialty field
Yeah.
Yes.
of some sort of higher level of training. I don't know, like your husband, the Hankster.
Yes.
He is a pediatric endocrinologist.
Yes.
Wow.
I can barely say it, but it's not free.
No.
And
these are jobs society needs.
right.
Yes.
And yet there's a lot of resistance because, student loan forgiveness programs would cost taxpayers money at the end of the day. And so the question becomes, who would pay for this? How do we pay for it? Is it a good idea? Should Christians support it? One of the oppositions, of course, people say things like, why should someone else's debt be forgiven out of my taxes? It's a very common thing, right?
Yeah.
One of the responses from Relevant Magazine was, oh, I'm sorry, you're not familiar with roads and public schools that are paid for from your taxes that benefit other people?
Mm.
Like, in a sense, it's part of the social contract.
Yeah. But
I don't know if I agree with that though.
Yeah. The difference is, well, maybe this isn't as relevant as I thought when I started, but roads, everybody drives on roads. Schools, all children are going to school. The debt, I was going to say, is an individual's debt, but no, whoever the proponent of this bill would be, they would be putting out, for a number of individuals. So it would be a small segment of society, but, schools are a relatively small segment of the overall population.
No, but I think there's a point to be made there. Like you have chosen to acquire debt, whereas roads are something that, like you said, everybody benefits from. It's a public good. I wonder if maybe people would be a little bit softer if we just said, if you're going into certain majors or professions, we'll do some sort of forgiveness for that, because I went to college not too long ago, and a lot of my friends got degrees that I thought at that time were very dumb. And I would be mad if I had to pay back their debt, because I know they'll never work in their field and they shouldn't have gone to school for that in the first place. Whereas maybe a doctor, a nurse, or a teacher, I think because those are also public services. Maybe there's an argument for forgiving that debt, but not all debt.
That's super creative.
And I think with some of the loan forgiveness stuff, don't quote me on this, but I believe it's also for a lot of people who are in nonprofits.
There's a program available.
Yeah,
for
there
that,
are some where you are only eligible if you work for nonprofit or some form of ministry. And so, and sometimes when it comes to ministry, you usually think of, well, income is probably going to be less than what it would be elsewhere anyways.
Well,
But
and go ahead.
even with that, I mean, it's really not a whole lot of relief, because I could qualify in 7 or 8 years, and I've looked into this. But you still have to pay back for 10 years. If you're going to qualify for the forgiveness, you have to pay a lot more on the front end.
Yes.
And I forget the exact dollar amount it would save me, but overall, it would not save me much money.
No.
And I would have to pay a lot more each month to qualify in another 7 to 8 years.
Yeah.
And of course, you have other sides of this where, for example, universities are charging too much. Banks are charging exorbitant interest rates when, as a society, we could set caps when it's federal student loans at very low interest rates, below the current interest rate. We could decide that as a society, so banks make less money / the government.
I like that.
We've got colleges who are, I make silly jokes about it, but Harvard could pay off everyone's college debt and still have enough of an endowment to feed an entire nation.
Yeah.
For like their lifetime. I mean, the super wealthy continue to give gobs of money to universities who continue to sit on tons of money they're not going to ever use.
Yeah.
And so someone could say, well, I'll make them repay it. But regardless, there were a lot of great comments that came in. I'll share a funny one first. There was one funny comment because I thought it was kind of fun that on a serious topic, someone did this. They said, no, with multiple O's and an exclamation point. No loan assistance. It will upset Dave.
We should have asked him about this yesterday.
Also, Christians are pretty much against everything. Like, I'm a Christian, I don't like it. We're against everything. Isn't that kind of funny?
Great response.
So here's one that I wanted to share with you. That's a no. We should not do loan forgiveness and support it. It isn't fair, this person wrote, to people like me who were also sold the same bill of goods and repaid my loans in full, living on peanuts and benefits and beneath my means for a decade. Like, I'm someone who sacrificed and I paid off my debt, you giant whiner. This is not fair just because I made sacrifices and you don't want to. I mean,
it's valid in its way.
It is. Yeah, you shouldn't have to take on more burden from other people when you're already struggling. I fully agree with that. However, to insist that there's something wrong with us, we're not working hard enough when we've shown you the numbers, college tuition has almost tripled and wages have not gone up hardly at all. So it's not just that we're not wanting to pay them back. For some people, they're not able.
Yeah, and I mean, it's been a long time, so I feel like I can share some specifics. I remember Sarah and I bought our first house in 2003-ish. It was a wicked awesome loan. It was like no money down. They just like threw money at us. Would you like more?
The dream.
Back in those days.
The dream.
We sold our first house and we made, I think, like 20 grand on the house. All of it went to paying off Sarah's loans.
Wow.
Now, I could develop records for this. We'd be in a different financial place if we were sitting on 20 grand in the bank that over the last however many number of years. Why can't I get mine?
Yeah, that's a natural, albeit selfish, feeling that comes up. A lot of people wonder, why should we help just this certain group of people and not everybody?
Well, and that's this person's point. Like they're saying, just like we worked hard, we made some investments, we paid it off. It's not fair that you get yours paid off. But what do we make of that as a biblical argument for a Christian? Is that a Christian argument?
No.
We actually just got I think it's a great text on that. It seems like hypocrisy for Christians to be so grateful about Christ paying their sin debt, but unwilling to forgive other debts. A bit like the unfaithful servant who was given much, then wouldn't forgive the one who owed him.
Even the one about I forget the name of the parable, but the wages one. Somebody worked all day, somebody worked for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
It feels unfair. And on a human scale, is unfair. But I'm supposed to consider others more important than myself. I've been given a gift I didn't deserve. In theory, as a Christian, I should regularly be in favor of giving gifts to people that they don't deserve, that I would like, but I don't get. Right? Isn't that a Christian ethos?
Yeah. I think there's also this too of, even if I'm not eligible, if somebody else can benefit from it, then that's a blessing that they can receive because it's being offered by the government, right?
Yeah.
I think that's something that we need to remember too is, it might not have been in my time. I might not be eligible. But if there's somebody in need who could benefit from it, then by all means, it's offered to you.
Yeah. No, and I, let's just say Ron and Lauren were both up for station manager. Sorry, Josh. I just fired you.
Kicked him out. He's sick this week, so he's lost his job.
And I mean, let's just say Lauren got it. Ron could be like, this is not fair. I've been here many more years than Lauren. This is unjust. But I feel like the Christian response would be for Ron to cheer for and be excited for the accomplishment of his colleague.
Yes.
Yeah.
She's more qualified anyway.
I don't know about that. No. But you understand what we're supposed to be happy for people when good things happen for them.
Right.
Yeah, just because something good happens to somebody else doesn't mean something bad has happened to you.
Ooh.
I mean, this guy's right. He did for a decade live like a very stingy life just to try to pay off his loans.
And I think that people who have loans now should be. I don't think that they should be getting expensive stuff. I don't think that they should be going on vacations. I think they need to like pare it down, and they need to be living to be able to pay more than just the minimum on their debt so that they can get ahead of it. And they should have some time, some years of really grinding to make it work. I don't think that they should just kind of wait around until maybe, hopefully, the government pays it off.
At the same time, though, I can relate to the feeling of, somebody looking
Totally.
at their debt going, well, I'll never pay this off. I might as well go on vacation and enjoy life.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, what are we supposed to have people, someone's got debt, so we better all watch them suffer until it's no fun for you.
No, I'm just saying, I think you need to put in the work to make a dent in it, to do some work to get it paid down, that you are trying to pay back your debts. Just because there's a potential option doesn't mean that we shouldn't do our part to pay back what we owe. We don't just get to sit on it just because we have years or we have time or whatever.
And in this texter, I would say from the sound of it, he threw work-life balance to the four winds. And he just said, I am going to grind. I am going to live as frugally as I can to pay off the debts that I incurred going to college. And he was able to do that. A lot of people value work-life balance a lot higher than paying off their debts.
Oh, interesting.
And so they would not agree with him. They would have said, you fool, why are you working so hard and not enjoying your life? He probably found joy in the simple things while he could and when he had to.
But still, we can't presume, since he did the hard, painful thing, that it's the right thing, per se, like the ideal.
Yeah, I can see that. I think there's also this, too, of we need to be good stewards, kind of what Lauren is alluding to here, where if you have debt, you need to be wise about your money. And the Bible talks a lot about wisdom with money and the need for stewardship. I think a lot of people assume that, like, the American dream is just living paycheck to paycheck, having everything that you want. And maybe he's like, this texter is alluding to those people that are just like throwing money away and they're just not paying off debt because it's going to be forgiven.
Yeah, and we can't lump like a Lauren and Daria and underneath that umbrella because it's going to the extreme.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, fair enough. 7:22, time for a quick break here. We'll continue talking about this. Again, the question from Relevant Magazine, should Christians support student loan forgiveness? We're chatting about a Relevant Magazine article that piqued a lot of interest this week. Simply asking the question, should Christians support student loan forgiveness? As it's a big question happening in our society. A lot of strong opinions. I've got more throughout the week here, but who are you? Lauren said she got another one this morning. That was pretty good.
Yeah, we talked about it earlier in this week. It came up when we talked about it, but someone said, student loans have been borderline predatory for quite a while. The way the entire system pushes you to go to school, borrow a ton of money, make sure you attend our really expensive and fun institution, it just feels like young people were really encouraged to do things that they were at best unwise. And I think me and Daria were saying that there was a trend, and I'm not sure when it started, but it for sure lasted from when I was looking in high school, looking for schools, and I think you too, Daria.
Same.
That you must go to college. There is no other option. And if you don't, even if you go to a community college, you're kind of like looked down upon.
In my school, they didn't even really give community college as an option.
Yeah.
Like, community college was something you did for, we had like a program where you could take classes at the community college while you were still in high school, but that was not seen as something that was smart to do once you graduated high school as a way to get your associates.
And the tough thing, too, is not every community college credits transfer.
Correct.
Totally.
And that was the tough thing for me of, okay, I know I'm going to be going to this university. If it doesn't transfer, then I've just wasted X amount of money on these classes.
I think another problem, too, is general education requirements at colleges.
Yes.
I mean, getting a liberal arts degree, I mean, half of your debt is classes that do not apply to what you want to do. I took so. I mean, there were classes that I had to take that my professors were actively fighting to get stricken from requirements because certain majors fulfilled those anyway, but you're still required to take these specific classes. It's just a way to rack up what they have to charge you.
Yep.
And none of the professors want to teach the gen ed classes. They hate it. So they have a bad attitude.
Oh, yeah.
You're in a giant lecture hall. My general biology class in my undergrad, what a joke. I still got an A in it, but what a joke.
You don't learn anything. Those are some of the worst classes I took. I mean, you skate by, you don't study because it's not what you want to do, and it's boring.
And it's, by the way, a repeat of most high school classes.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
So change the whole system, make it 2 years.
Oh.
Yeah, someone said, should Christians support student loans? My thought is going to college is a choice. So with that choice, there are consequences. It's up to that person to fulfill. And I think that's the problem we've been talking about is we were told it is not an option for you.
Yeah, there is no choice.
You will not get a job.
Be a loser or go to college.
Exactly. We were told you will not get a job unless you go to a 4-year school
Yes.
and unless you have a degree on your resume.
I kid
You
you.
won't.
I kid you not. They were bringing in college like representatives when I was 12. I mean, this started really early, and we're not even just talking about degrees that like you can laugh like, why in the world would you get that degree? And believe me, I know some of those people. But I mean, doctors, teachers, these are valuable people in our society, and they are also riddled with debt. What do you want them to do? Do you want nobody to go to school because no one can afford to buy it outright?
Right.
Yeah,
And
and I like the trend, how it's trending now. Parents are telling their kids, like, take a gap year, figure out what you actually want to do. Do you actually want to go be a veterinarian? Do you actually want to go be a nurse? What do you actually want to do? Or do you want to go to a trade school? Do you want to do this? But that really wasn't like a thing when I was in middle school and high school trying to make these decisions.
Yeah, same here. And there, Daria, like kind of what you said, there are certain degrees where I'm like, please, I am begging you, get an education.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want a
Don't
nurse.
operate on my brain.
Right. Like, I want a nurse who's
Please.
actually gone through and worked on dummies
Yes.
or something.
Right.
Please, I am begging you.
And yet there is that measure of, like you're saying, we were lied to.
I think so.
Yes.
In that,
And I think it just fuels that system where there's greed in the universities.
Yes.
And,
Oh,
they
yeah.
push it down and push it down and push it down to where we thought we didn't have an option, and now they just have bajillions of dollars.
and I've since discovered, not only are blue collar jobs admirable, but they're more than adequate to support you.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
In fact, will support you better in many cases than people with a degree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, so it's a lie told the suburbs. What?
Someone texted in, and she said, "I broke up with my high school boyfriend because he wasn't going to go to college." And that's what I'm talking about.
Yes.
Because he looked like a loser. Because he looked
Yes.
like a loser.
And he's probably laughing all the way to the bank. Maybe he's probably an HVAC
He's
technician
probably
or
a plumber
something.
guy, and he's making all kinds of money now.
I have a friend
Yeah.
who's about 10 years older than me, so he's in his mid-50s, and he wanted to either be a mechanic or go into the military. And his guidance counselor at school literally made fun of him.
Wow.
Was like, what are you thinking?
Wow.
Why would you do something so dumb?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it got a little nicer in my 10 years later,
I would
but
hope.
it's really unbelievable. So we got a text earlier this week from somebody who is a veterinarian. Love you guys. Boy, vets are amazing.
The best.
He said, I graduated veterinary school with $85,000 in debt in 1998. The two younger vets I work with that graduated about 8 years ago are $370,000 in debt.
Oh, that's wow.
What?
That's more than a mortgage. Like back in the day, that's a house.
Yeah.
370, same job,
Wow.
same job, like 10 years later.
Mm-hmm.
That's criminal. Who would want to be a vet? Why would you want to be a vet?
Not at that kind of an investment.
No.
Because vets aren't getting paid what doctors are getting paid.
No.
No.
Because we're all trying not to pay vets. You know what I'm trying?
Yes.
Because we already paid for ourselves and our kids and everything. So, wow. Oh, goodness sakes. We got to take a quick break and we'll come back with more. Lots of thoughts coming in. I will share some from there's people who think, yes, debt should be forgiven, student loan debts, as we're talking about. Should Christians support student loan forgiveness? There's people on both sides that have texted in throughout this week. We'll look at a few more perspectives in just a minute. All morning this follow-up Friday, we got Kelly Ryder in studio, our good friend and colleague.
Hey.
Hey.
It's good to be here. Having fun.
So we're chatting before the break about a Relevant Magazine article asking the question, should Christians support student loan forgiveness? And there's been lots of comments on either side. We're just chatting about various perspectives. I don't know that there is a definitive biblical answer to this because it's not directly addressed in Scripture. And oftentimes, biblical wisdom is found in just using biblical principles and trying to apply them as best you can in your life. Lauren's our theologian. I don't know that anyone can definitively put a flag in and declare this is the biblical position.
On student loan forgiveness?
Yeah.
No. You can't.
Why not?
Because it doesn't exist in Scripture.
So we all must use wisdom, and reasonable people could come to different conclusions on this.
Yeah.
Okay. Daria, you had a pretty strongly worded comment on Facebook.
Yeah. What high schools did you go to? Did you have to believe everything they said? It's a generic you, not specifically you.
We went to high school in 3 different states.
Yes.
And I was 14. 14. And I have adults coming and telling me, look at all this wonderful stuff. Come to this school, do this. You could be a nurse. You could be that. I'm 14. What are you talking about?
You can't expect children, especially when it's coming from people that, over the course of our lives, it's built up. Teachers are trustworthy. Teachers care about you. You can listen to them. You cannot expect children to sift through lies. And they probably weren't even lying. They probably genuinely believed that this started in probably the 80s or 90s, that you had to go to school. This was just kind of where culture was. It wasn't just teachers. I told my parents have changed their stance on college, but I one time told my dad I wasn't sure I wanted to go to college, and he laughed. He's like, if anyone's going to college, it's you. You were built for college.
Yeah, I think what the conclusion we came to earlier this week maybe it's not necessarily loan forgiveness. There's a lot of reasons not to do that, but someone needs to hold these universities and banks accountable. And maybe it's the government that needs to do that, because what they're doing is predatory. These costs for schools, the interest rates on student loans is insane, and people are never going to get out of them.
Even dropping interest rates to 0% interest and just asking students to repay what they borrowed would be life-changing for many people.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's
That
not even
alone.
forgiveness. It's just elimination of interest.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And there's societal interest in that in some respects. But, okay, here's another comment. Someone thinks, no, Christians should not support student loan forgiveness. They say, I do not think Christians should support it. I think Christians should keep doing what they're doing. Like, for example, donating money to Moody Radio. I'm sorry, I don't mean to be a Scrooge, but I was born in 1983, and the cost of college went up for me as well as for Daria and Lauren. I have family members born 10 years younger than me. No money to repay loans, but covered in tattoos and getting them constantly, going to concerts and all-inclusive vacations. Like, essentially, young people living it up, sitting on their loans.
That's maybe 1 or 2 people that you know. The vast majority of us, I was very fortunate to just buy my first house. I didn't think I'd ever be able to do that because of the economy, and my student loans are one of those things that I thought would forever hold me back. Not everybody's out there squandering their money.
Someone else said, I think there's a larger Christian argument to be made that we should care about learning what wise policy looks like. Neither full loan forgiveness nor the current situation is wise policy.
No, neither's working.
No.
Neither's working.
I think
That's very thoughtful.
It is.
Yeah, and I think there's also this too. I can't speak for everybody else here, but when I was a kid in high school and even in college, nobody's telling you how to budget. Nobody's telling you, okay, let's just budget and see what life would be if you got X amount of money for your income. And what does it look like to pay off debt?
Especially college debt.
Yeah, I had no idea.
And what it means to have an interest rate and what that looks like over 20 years.
Right.
One of the things that gets thrown around, I think, the term student loan forgiveness, and some people in their mind might think, oh, we're going to have the government pay 100% of the student loan, for each student who went to school. From, I don't know what years you'd include in that or whatever.
Yeah.
But any of the proposals that I've heard, they're pretty limited on who would be eligible, and it's only a partial student loan repayment. So maybe your harsh answers would be softened a little bit if you knew it wasn't in totality for every student who made the decision to sign the loan paper.
Yeah, it's a good point, because we really have become, in all things, an all or nothing society.
Yeah.
Right? It's either there's a yes or a no. There's no maybe. There's no kinda. There's not part way. Right? You're for or against. You're 100% Republican, 100% Democrat, or you're nothing. Yeah, you're for or you're against. You know, and this is what it is. And what you're saying is like this guy indicates. You know, the Christian argument would ultimately be nuanced, because neither full forgiveness nor the current situation is wise, this person says. Correct. So the solution would be nuanced. Not everyone's 100% forgiven. Nobody's 100% forgiven. Those are not the options. And yet, how do we end up always talking about that?
Right. No, I feel that, because when you see these payments, they're still making payments. It might be lower than what kind of the average payment is for loans, I'm assuming here, but they're still paying something back, and there's still interest on the loans, even though there is forgiveness happening. Does that make sense? I hope it does.
Yeah, and I don't know. It's a frustrating thing to look at, because I still get very upset with Ivy League schools with endowments the size of economies of major countries. There's something unjust about that. Mm-hmm. Now, maybe that's rooted in jealousy. Not like I think I can get that money somehow for myself, but it just doesn't seem just that Harvard can have so much money that they don't need.
Yeah.
That's not helping anyone except themselves. And it's not even helping them because they don't need it. Mm-hmm. The more you look into Ivy League endowments, it's just mind-blowing how much money is in them. And yet we're asking taxpayers to repay this? Are you kidding me?
Right. And there's so much interest in college. I don't know what the prices are now, but they weren't cheap when I went to college, so can't imagine.
Let's go to Paul in Copley. Hey, Paul, what do you have for us on student loan forgiveness and whether Christians should support it?
Well, I'm all for it, honestly. I mean, I didn't go to college. I got into a trade school. And, back when I was younger, they were saying, go to college, go to college. Well, I don't have a problem with them forgiving the student loan debt, because I think a lot of these students are duped. And if you look at the trillions of dollars we give to foreign countries, and we can't forgive these student loan debts because some of these kids were duped or they made a mistake or whatever. It can't be an ongoing thing, but I think a one-time forgiveness up to a certain amount of money, I don't have a problem with that at all. We give so much money away as a country, and you can say what you want about these kids. Well, they shouldn't have did this, they shouldn't have done that, they shouldn't have went into college for art or whatever, but they make mistakes when a lot of them don't even have any guidance, do they? How many kids don't have parents at home? So they rely on the student guidance counselors and blah, blah, blah. I mean, like I was telling the lady, we homeschooled 5 kids. 4 of them went to college. But the whole time we were homeschooling them, I didn't get anything from the public school system, and I paid my taxes,
interesting point.
So where's all that money? I mean, I didn't ask nothing from the public school system, but every year I paid my property tax, and so I really don't. I think there's a time. The amount of money that would go into the student loan forgiveness is very minimal, I think, compared to what they're spending in Ukraine or look at the money they spend on even these on the campaigns. I mean,
that's so true.
The advertising money they spend. I mean, ask these campaigns. Hey, how about giving a couple million to student loan debt? Start a GoFundMe.
That's actually creative too, because I'm so tired of those ridiculous political ads. Candidate A hates babies. They say these ridiculous things. They think we're so dumb.
Yeah.
Right. And, I don't know. I think we went through a time in our society, where they told everybody to go to college, and that was fine. I would have liked to gone myself, but as a person who didn't go to college, sometimes I feel like people who did go to college look down on you because, and not personally, but I mean, look at any application you apply for a home loan or whatever. How many years of education did you have? How many, who cares how many? The guys who built our country went to 8th grade.
Amen.
A lot of them, and these people, they got all the college, they don't know how to build the pyramids.
Yeah.
They
Now,
still
Paul,
haven't figured-
why don't you have the disposition of it's not fair if they get a loan paid off and I didn't get to go to college?
Because, of course I trust in the Lord, and the Lord guides your steps. And, I'm not, a lot of life isn't fair. If stuff was fair, is it fair that we spend so much money on military aid to other countries? Is it fair that, we're letting the border be run over and we're spending all that money on immigrants, which I feel I got mixed feelings about that too, but we just spend so much money. Hey, give the kid, tell them in high school, hey, here's so much money for a 2-year degree if you choose to go to college, And like you guys talk about the endowments, of course, these people, we should stop giving our money to them, stop giving it to the endowments or the colleges, and start paying off the student loan debt with it. I bet you that money would go a long way,
Some great points, Jim. You've enhanced our discussion today. Sorry, not Jim, Paul. Paul, thank you so much, Paul, for the call. Love you, brother. We got to get to a break, but hope you have a great weekend, my friend.
Yeah, you too. Take care. God bless.
Kelly Ryder in studio. Hey.
Woohoo!
And we're talking about student loan forgiveness. Lots of thoughts coming in. The question from Relevant Magazine, should Christians support student loan forgiveness? And if you're just tuning in, we've been talking about it for quite a while. So if you're wondering, why haven't they brought up, we probably did. But there's still much to discuss here. Lauren, you've had tons of comments coming in by text. Was there anything in particular you wanted to bring up? Don't look, I've got more here, Lauren. She just gave me a mean look. Text live to see it.
Because you asked me to do something during the break, and I said, okay, you're just going to not have to ask me to talk right now so I can do that.
I put my headphones on. I couldn't hear you.
No, I said it before you did it.
Well, I've got something else then. So you keep looking it up. So here it goes. Somebody wrote this. Students and parents need to watch the documentary Borrowed Future. Students should work before and during college and take the financial peace class. Don't spend what you don't have. Students can apply for scholarships. There are lots available, and going into debt is not biblical.
It's so hard to work while you're studying. I did have a job on campus, but part of the reason why I didn't spend too much time working is because I wanted to get done with college quicker.
Right.
And I didn't want to waste time because when you spend more time in college, then you're accruing more debt.
I'm not certain the statement going into debt is not biblical is I don't agree with that.
No.
You can take out loans. It's okay.
Right.
You got to pay them back.
Exactly.
Right.
That would be unbiblical.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but
that happens.
But I think there is a philosophy. There's some financial advisors in Christian thinking that say you need to pay off all your debts as fast as possible and pay for cash for everything. Never be in debt. And that's not the only philosophy for Christian finance.
Yeah. And not only that, but not all of us can do that. It'd be great if we could.
Right. And it's because it's usually the uber wealthy Christians telling poor Christians to do things like that.
Yes.
My youngest son was fortunate. I think it was a math teacher, but one of his teachers in high school told them the power of compound interest. And he said, I'm going to be a millionaire when I retire. And they're like, right, yeah, sure. All of us are. And he says, no, look at this. And he started to diagram on the board and told them the average, interest, your money doubles in the stock market every, I think, 7 years. And so he says, if I've got this much in now, it'll double, it'll double, it'll double. Here's where I'm ready to retire. I've been putting more money in. It's been doubling. And look, it's over $1 million.
Nice.
And they were like stunned that could happen, but it stuck with him. And he has understood the power of saving money. And interestingly, he's going to be 30. He went to community college to start because it was cheaper and felt like, no, this isn't doing anything for me. I'm not going to incur debt for no reason. And he didn't continue his college education.
And he's doing fine now.
He's doing fine. Yeah.
Had a guy. Let's jump to the phones. We got Jim in Akron's been waiting patiently. Hey, Jim, what's your take on whether Christians should support student loan forgiveness?
Well, whether Christians should support it or not, that's each individual person. What I don't like about the whole program is that we reward the people who are causing the problem. The schools jack the rates up. The banks are charging high interest rates. And then the kids who took the loans out, because they had to, are getting hammered. But yet here we're supposed to pay it back. So the bank makes all their money, the school gets all their money, and we, the taxpayer, get stuck with the bill. I have dozens of veterinarians that are our clients, and they have over $200,000 in student loan debts. And at 8% interest, they're paying $2,000 a month to pay their student loans back. But at 8% interest, they're barely putting $4,000 towards the principal after paying in $24,000 a year.
Wow.
And they have all said the same thing. And these are different clinics all over Northeast Ohio. If I could get a 0 or 1% interest, I could afford to pay my loans back. But at 6, 7, 8%, I'll never get out.
True.
I mean, think about that: $1,000 a month, and you're not even seeing. You're really putting a dent. But the banks make their money.
So it sounds like the creative solution would be federal loans being dropped to 0% interest.
That would take care of everything. Because basically the banks that are overcharging the people, and even if you made it 1%, so the bank made a little bit of money, but 8%, and the schools, they're getting paid no matter what happens. They should be curtailing their, the cost of school has gone up far much more than inflation has. Far.
And see, to me, your thoughts on this are very reasonable. And then I just kind of go, look at us. We're here just in Ohio, having a chat, and we're fixing the problem. Like, what's the deal? Why has this not been fixed?
I'm telling you, when you said that, when you said, if you dropped it to 1%, I was like, yes, he's right. That would fix it.
It's one of the first times someone said that, by the way. So thank you for telling me.
Encourage him.
The New York Times are on.
Lauren, Jim from
great
Akron.
Conversation today.
Yeah, and you made it better, brother. Thanks for the call.
My pleasure. Have a good day.
And hey, by the way, Jim, do you drink coffee?
No, I don't.
You don't drink coffee. Do you have a spouse or a child or a friend that drinks coffee?
My coworkers drink it like it's an IV.
Oh,
Okay,
I'm
so,
that way
so
too.
here's what we're going to do. We have, how much coffee is in there?
I can do a pound.
I've got a pound of Mornings with Brian blend coffee, courtesy of Yada
Yada,
Yada coffee in Cuyahoga Falls. But I'd love to have sent to you so you can share with your colleagues about the show and give them some coffee. How's that sound?
Well, thank you very much.
You bet. I appreciate you making the show better. I messed up almost everything about the coffee, but again, it's Yada Coffee in Cuyahoga Falls. It's the Mornings with Brian blend, and we'll send it to you. So you stay on hold, Jim. We'll get your information and send it off to you.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. See, this is what you get when you tell me I'm right.
Suddenly you're thrown off for the rest of the show.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, boy. Yeah. Okay, so to throw in another position here, on the opposite end, somebody else wrote into us and said, I'm 62 and could not afford to go to college back then. A lot of my friends did go. I don't see why we should pay for it now. I agree with Ron. The banks bear responsibility. Like, I shouldn't have to pay for this.
The banks do bear responsibility. I agree with myself there, but I don't know that we have the political will to enforce that retroactively on the banks. That any politician, I hate to say that they're in the bank's pocket, but it would not probably bode well for them to try to say, let's force all the banks to retroactively change all their 8% loans back down to 1%. And that could get challenged in the courts too. So the fact is, this has happened. A wrong, in my opinion, has been done. How are we going to address that?
Yeah, and to an extent, I agree with you, Ron, because we live in a depressing political reality where compromise doesn't exist anymore. because for this to work, one side would have to say, I don't agree with 100% forgiveness. It's either 100% or nothing.
Yeah.
And the other side would have to be able to say, okay, well, yeah, we can do something here, as opposed to, no, we're not going to use any tax money. No. Like we're seeing a nuanced middle here, and we don't live in an era where compromise is really allowed by the base.
Yeah.
I think the majority of Americans would support compromise in some measure, but the loud base gets to run every political party, and I don't know what to do. We just sit here and we can develop a good solution. Well, I think we've actually solved this. Usually they don't solve problems. It's like it would change everything if you just reduce the interest rate to almost nothing.
Maybe if the FBI is listening, they can let people know.
Unfortunately, no one ever asks us. We have no power.
Right.
And honestly, I think any costs incurred should come from endowments from universities at a percentage.
It's crazy.
I'll solve this right now. Here's what it is. You develop a flat percentage, whether it's 10%, 5%. The government will confiscate 5% of every university endowment across America.
And that'd just be like a drop in the bucket for them.
Yeah, they wouldn't even notice it's gone.
Mm-hmm.
A place like Harvard, they'd be like 5%. Would you like 50, actually?
Please do.
We'll be fine here at Harvard.
We're running out of places to store all this cash.
But again, do we have the political will, Ron? I think you're right on this. I don't know that until we see a shift in how politics is done in America, nuance and thinking don't seem to be rule of the day.
Yeah, and
it's too bad.
And for me, I even wonder, who determined 8%? Increased it to that much, right?
It's crazy. And if you've got a flexible interest, you could see it go up. I mean, I mentioned this earlier in the week, my student loans are literally have a higher interest rate than my mortgage. My house, which is an appreciating asset.
Yes.
So are you in our eyes, Daria.
Thank you. My student loans, which I took out 8 years ago, are not.
Now, I think we have to take a quick break here, but when we come back, I think it's safe to say by the look on your face that you've done some biblical research for us.
I have.
Because there's a common argument people use to adamantly refuse to have any sort of forgiveness done. And they're like, no, we will not do student loan forgiveness. You made this choice. You stick with the choice you made.
Mm-hmm.
And Lauren did some digging in scripture. We're going to try to unpack that, as they say. We'll come alongside and together figure out if that's biblical to think that way. We've been talking a bit today about probably the hottest topic of the week, which is, should Christians support student loan forgiveness? And what we're discovering, I think, is a lot of Christians seem to support a more nuanced position here. The all for or all against seems to not be ruling the day, although some would still feel that way. In fact, one of the things I asked our friend Lauren to dig into a bit for us is the sentiment that we've seen a lot, which is best represented by this text. Quote, "It isn't fair to people like me who were also sold the same bill of goods about college and repaid my loans in full, living on peanuts and beneath my means for a decade." As in, I was told the same lies from colleges and banks and all that, and I paid mine and I paid it off. It's not fair that you'd get yours paid off.
Mm-hmm.
So the question in my mind is that a biblical disposition? It's a legit feeling. I felt that way about lots of things.
Yes, that feeling is so legit. It's okay to have that feeling. You know, there's reasons you have that feeling because you did your work.
I feel that way when anyone posts vacation pictures.
Right.
Ooh.
It's not fair that you are on that vacation and I'm here at my
Especially
house.
if it's, poolside.
Yes.
I feel it
Yes.
deeply.
Yeah. One thing I wanted to look into was the Sabbath year, where you find it in Deuteronomy 15, where they release the debts of all the Israelites. Any Israelite that had a debt, the person who gave the loan had to release it.
Like totally forgive it, write it off.
Totally forgive it.
Every how many years?
7.
Okay.
Every 7 years. So at the end of every 7th year, you must cancel the debts of everyone who owes you money. This is how it must be done. Everyone must cancel the loans they have made to their fellow Israelites. They must not demand payment from their neighbors or relatives, for the Lord's time of release has arrived. This release from debt, however, applies only to your fellow Israelites, not to the foreigners who live among you. There should be no poor among you, for the Lord your God will greatly bless you in the land he is giving you as a special possession. You will receive this blessing if you are careful to obey all the commandments the Lord is giving you today. And it goes on and on.
But that's not fair, Lauren, because what I would do, I'd be sneaky. I'd be like, oh yeah, next year's the year of Jubilee. I'm going to borrow $1 million.
Right.
That's
It
not
doesn't
fair.
matter. It doesn't matter how close to the 7th year.
You probably won't even get that at that point because they know it's coming.
Yeah, I guess they know
Exactly.
too.
That's so true. So I went to the Moody Bible commentary. Deuteronomy was written by Dr. Jim Coakley. He's the best. Okay.
You've taken him for classes, right?
Mm,
No?
No, I didn't. I went to Israel with him.
Oh, there you go. So you know him. Yeah.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Continuing the theme, and he says, continuing the theme of caring for the underprivileged, Moses gave instructions regarding the Sabbath year. The Sabbath year was earlier mentioned, whereby Israel was not to cultivate the land every 7th year. This may be an expanded exposition of the 4th commandment. At the end of the 7th year, every creditor shall grant remission of debts that their fellow Israelites has incurred. While the practice of debt remission may seem unfair to the lender, especially if he were to lend money out close to the 7th year, several points can be made in defense of the practice. The overall theme of the passage focuses on God blessing the people. So it seems inevitable that God would richly bless the lender for his obedience, even if it made no financial sense to forgive the loan made so close to the Sabbath year. This verse also focuses on the moral, not financial principle behind the commandment to forgive loans. They were, in essence, debtors to God and morally responsible to likewise forgive debts of others.
Oh, so forgive. Yeah. Lord, it's the Lord's Prayer.
Yeah.
Forgive us our trespasses. We forgive those who trespass against us.
Mhm.
And actually, one translation says debtors.
Yes, debtors. Mhm.
So if I'm understanding you correctly,
Because we have been so richly given grace to forgive all of our debts that we have not financial debts towards God. We can't have financial debts technically towards God, but we sin against him every day. Our hearts are constantly running away from him. He is always beckoning after us, and we are constantly running away. And he's forgiven all of our debts, and it should be our disposition to forgive others of debts.
You want to talk about not fair? Jesus died.
You said it.
I mean, he didn't do anything.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he suffered the worst death. Now, I did see somebody text in to say,
Yeah.
whoa, let's not get carried away with our theology here. Grace for sin is different than financial debt. But what it sounds like you're saying.
It's less. I'm so sorry. It is less. Grace for debt is less than grace for sin.
You got to watch the live stream.
You broke
Yes.
Lauren.
Yes.
But you've seen this argument come in.
Yeah. Because they're saying, well, it's only something God can do.
Mm-hmm.
And we are to be every day looking and acting more like Christ, who died for our sins.
So that would be an argument more for full forgiveness, full stop, like for
Yes.
loans.
And I understand in the society we live in, and there wasn't full forgiveness all the time. For 7 years, they are paying off their debts. And then just on that 7th year, it's whatever is remaining, forgive it. So God is saying, yeah, you got to be responsible, financially responsible. You're going to pay back those loans for 7 years. You're going to work and you're going to be responsible and you are going to, own up to that you needed this money and you're paying it back. But at 7 years, we're going to forgive it.
So even a Christian supporting the idea of, like, let's just say a 7-year term, you must pay full payment of your student loan for 7 years and then it's forgiven.
I could see it.
And I could see people who
Yeah.
are frustrated because they didn't get loan forgiveness actually
totally-
going like, oh, okay, yeah, I could see that.
Yeah, I totally get that. It's frustrating that my parents paid their debts and then they're like, oh, but my daughter gets her debts paid. That feels bad because I spent so much time and money and was living less. But we should be overwhelmed with joy for our friends who are getting their debts paid,
That's
even
a
if it's
heart
not for you.
That's a Christian heart.
Yeah.
And this is where it's so hard. And when we talk about conforming our lives to Christ, right? Like we're supposed to change the way we think when we follow Jesus.
Mhm. And it's hard.
This is one of the harder ways to do it. It's hard to rid ourselves
Yeah.
of jealousy
Totally.
Ooh.
and a sense of fairness.
Yeah.
Even Ecclesiastes. Like I remember, I'm the one guy who loves Ecclesiastes, and one of the major themes in there is life is not fair.
Mm.
Like Solomon wrote, it's not fair that the good die young and the wicked prosper. But essentially he's saying God's economy has got it figured out. I can't understand this.
Mm.
I've just got to trust that the Lord will work this out.
Yeah, and it's not fair. Like Dr. Coakley said in the comments,
It's not
fair.
Get over it,
Yeah, it's not
essentially.
fair. And we have to trust that God takes care
And all of that
Yeah.
based on the principle that it is literally not fair that Jesus died for your sins.
That's the least fair on Jesus. It's not fair to Jesus.
And see that it sounds so. I think
But
what happens
we're
to us,
bringing it down to like human terms. Jesus doesn't feel that it's not fair. Okay, he's God.
yeah,
Right.
right,
But-
right.
It's not fair to Jesus that
Right.
he had to take on the world's sin on his shoulder and die.
And see, I think part of it, though, is it feels less tangibly applicable to me, even though it's eternally applicable. The person who knows the theological truth
Mm-hmm.
versus has debt they're paying off every month, there's a feeling that's different. It shouldn't be. But I don't know how much we truly internalize as we grow closer to Jesus, the true price he paid on our behalf when we didn't deserve it.
No, it's hard to really make that, make it real to us every day.
It takes a lifetime to meditate on that reality,
Yeah.
to truly come to terms with, wow, I really didn't deserve this.
Yeah. You really have to come to terms of the evil of your own heart, and that every day you are constantly running from God and he's beckoning after you.
And that level of grace and forgiveness, truly grasped, is what gives us the, as you describe it, right, the joy in others receiving grace.
Yeah.
Mm.
And this is where it reminds me even of when the gospel. My friend Doug, he's such a great pastor. He's got a joy when he preaches the gospel and forgiveness. Where a lot of us end up feeling the weight of our sin, right? We beat ourselves up. Oh, I'm such a sinner.
Mm-hmm.
No, it's you're missing a piece of the gospel. It's that, oh, I'm such a sinner, and God died for me anyway.
Mm.
Oh, what joy!
Right.
It's that spiritual turn that has to take place. That's where we can find our joy in others receiving radical forgiveness.
And I think there's also this too. It's okay to feel frustrated or to feel gypped, but not to stay living in that mindset. You have to move past it.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you keep living in it, you're going to be living in bitterness and anger, and you're not going to be fully living in the fruits of the Spirit if you're living in those things, and it's going to corrupt your soul. So you have to move past it.
And yet, as we come full circle in this, all that spiritually being said, I don't think any of you are saying, therefore, forgive all American student loans. In
Right.
thy mercy.
No.
No.
No, I don't think so. I think we also, like, we still do live in a society. We still have to have a structure of how
sure.
life works and paying back debts and being wise with your money and making good choices.
And we're not ignorant to the tax fallout if
Oh,
student loans are forgiven, but I think we have structural problems. And like I said earlier in the week, I think we just want a little bit of compassion
Yeah.
because
have empathy for others.
it is hard.
But do you see how quickly Christians can give that pat answer like we just did? And we could have ended that with, and you see, forgive student loans. Here's Chris Tomlin. No, but that's not the
hard.
answer.
It's hard.
Right.
It is
To-
not fun. It feels bad.
But our heart's disposition is what God is going to be caring about. And as you indicated, Daria, right? It's empathy, it's compassion. Like, and we can declare a sense of unfairness. David did all the time to the Lord.
Yes.
But
And those who are in our society who are greedy and preying on people for their money, and they know that they're being evil with money, their hearts will have to be to answer to God too.
yeah, because God is the arbiter of justice,
Yes.
not Jod is the arbiter of Gustus.
That
As I
too.
almost said.
It's like, wait.
Where is this going?